Number 10, you believe you are in control. You believe that when you make a choice to show mercy, to inflict pain, or to look up at the sterile night sky, you are the architect of that decision. Physics disagrees. According to neurological data, the human brain requires approximately 13 milliseconds to process a visual image. By the time your consciousness registers an event, it is already buried in the past. Your physical meat suit has already reacted. You are not a conscious being making choices in real time. You are a biological glitch, a delayed passenger strapped inside a machine that operates purely on blind chemical reflexes. Every historical atrocity was initiated before the perpetrator even consciously knew they were doing it. If your very awareness is nothing more than a delayed echo in a decaying universe, how can you be sure you are truly alive? Number 9, you rely on your memories to tell you who you are. You treat your mind like an immutable vault, a secure foundation built on decades of lived experience. This is a catastrophic miscalculation. In the 1990s, cognitive psychologists studying false memory implantation proved that human consciousness is a highly metastable state. By simply feeding patients suggestive cues in a clinical setting, researchers successfully implanted entirely fabricated traumas into their minds. Within weeks, these individuals generated deep physiological stress responses for a past that never actually happened. Your identity is not a secure vault. It is a corrupted hard drive, endlessly overriding itself with fabricated data based on external manipulation. And if a human doctor can rewrite your entire reality with a few suggestive sentences, we must confront a far more horrifying mathematical probability. In astrophysics, there is a concept known as the Boltzmann brain paradox. In a universe of infinite time and thermal fluctuations, it is statistically more likely for a single, self-aware brain to spontaneously materialize in a void than for an entire universe to evolve. This spontaneous brain would exist for only a fraction of a second before crumbling back into the abyssal cold. But in that fraction of a second, it would possess memories. Mathematically, you cannot prove that you are a real biological organism sitting on a planet. You are completely indistinguishable from a fleeting fluctuation, dying alone in the deafening silence of an indifferent cosmos. Your entire reality is just a local weather condition in a chaotic void, and it could evaporate before you take your next breath. Number 8 and 7. Humanity looks back at the mid-20th century and recoils in horror at wartime freezing experiments. We label the doctors who dipped living prisoners into sub-zero waters as monsters. But the universe does not recognize morality. It only recognizes thermodynamics. To the cosmos, these researchers were merely observing the catastrophic failure points of the human biological glitch. They were testing the exact moment when our organic hardware breaks down. The resulting data reveals an unfathomable fragility. Temperature is nothing more than the speed at which atoms vibrate. According to hard biological limits, the proteins inside your brain begin to denature at exactly 42 degrees Celsius, or 107.6 degrees Fahrenheit. At this precise temperature, the complex folded structures of your neural pathways simply unravel. Push the temperature just 3 degrees higher to 45 degrees Celsius, and cell death is rapid and exponential. You are literally cooked alive from the inside of your own skull. But the cold is even more unforgiving. Clinical hypothermia begins when your core drops to a mere 35 degrees Celsius. As the ambient temperature plummets, the atomic vibration slows. The water that makes up the vast majority of your body undergoes a lethal phase change. It crystallizes. Microscopic, jagged ice crystals form inside your tissues, puncturing your cell membranes from the inside out. You do not simply freeze. Your fundamental biological architecture is shredded at the molecular level. You are a fragile water balloon of fat and proteins, desperately balancing on a razor's edge of thermal stability. Now, look at the environment we pretend to conquer. The absolute zero of the cosmos sits at minus 273.15 degrees Celsius. The average background temperature of the deep void is a sterile, indifferent 2.7 Kelvin. We walk around feeling invincible, assuming the universe is our playground, The overwhelming majority of the universe is instantly, violently lethal to our physical forms. We are basking in a brief, accidental moment of warmth granted by a decaying star that will eventually either roast our fragile proteins or leave our cellular water to crystallize in the endless dark. Number 6 and 5. In 1954, the United States military initiated Project 4.1. They, along with later studies like the Cincinnati radiation tests, systematically irradiated unsuspecting citizens to observe the breakdown of the human form. Society views these events as profound moral failures. The indifferent universe views them simply as raw data collection. We are terrified of nuclear weapons, yet we fundamentally misunderstand how high-level radiation actually kills. It is not a fire. It is the invisible, silent unzipping of your fundamental architecture. In astrophysics, radioactive emission is dictated by the inverse square law. Intensity equals power divided by 4 times pi times distance squared. According to data, the safe, natural background radiation on this planet is a mere 3.5 millisieverts per year. Our bodies have evolved just enough to repair the microscopic damage caused by this slow, constant drizzle of cosmic energy. But when the dosage reaches 100 sieverts, the human body enters central nervous system syndrome. It is an immediate, catastrophic death sentence. Imagine an intricate, sprawling castle built from trillions of individual Lego bricks. Radiation is not a flame that melts the plastic. It is trillions of microscopic bullets systematically sweeping through the structure at near light speed. When a human body absorbs 100 sieverts, your DNA is physically shattered. The Cincinnati test patients experienced severe hemorrhaging and cognitive collapse because their cells simply forgot how to divide. You dissolve from the inside out while your lungs are still pulling in air. Now, apply this biological fragility to the scale of the cosmos. A gamma-ray burst releases more energy in seconds than our sun will emit in its entire 10 billion year lifespan. If a gamma-ray burst aimed its beam at Earth from 1,000 light-years away, the inverse square law would not save us. It would instantly bathe the planet in hundreds of times the lethal dose. Every living organism on the sun-facing side of the Earth would have its DNA shattered simultaneously. Because the radiation travels at the speed of light, there would be zero warning. Your neural pathways, crippled by their 13 millisecond lag, would not even register a flash of light in the sky. We are extremely fragile code, drifting blindly through an abyssal firing squad. Number 4 and 3. We classify the Tuskegee syphilis study and the Stateville malaria experiments as some of the darkest chapters of human morality. But morality is a human invention. It is a comforting myth we whisper to ourselves to separate our actions from the sterile laws of nature. To the cosmos, there is no good or evil. There is only the algorithm of survival. It is the relentless, primordial mandate that the strong must devour the weak. During the 40-year duration of the Tuskegee experiment, the infectious agent engaged in a slow-burn annihilation of the victims. While human nerve impulses fire at speeds of up to 120 meters per second, forcing the brain to register the agonizing pain the parasite simply feeds. The human scientists monitoring these victims adopted the exact same parasitic algorithm. They watched this biological horror unfold for 4 decades, completely detached. To the researchers, the victims were not fellow humans. They were simply an automated computer program deleting corrupted files to free up disk space. The bacteria harvested the host for nutrients. The scientists harvested the host for data. Evolution has hardwired our biological machine to view its own kind as disposable raw material. Empathy is a fragile, unstable mutation. Ruthlessness is our base code. We look up at the sterile night sky, terrified of what hyper-advanced alien predators might be lurking in the dark forest of the cosmos. We fail to realize that the apex predator is already here. We are the architects of our own slaughterhouses, endlessly executing a biological algorithm we cannot rewrite. Number 2, we view our modern civilization as a permanent fixture. But physics describes our society as a perfectly metastable system. It requires only a microscopic perturbation to trigger a catastrophic collapse into a dead energy state. In 1983, the Soviet satellite system detected an incoming volley of American missiles. The duty officer, Stanislav Petrov, had mere minutes to report the launch. Through the lens of mass energy equivalence, E equals mc squared, the global nuclear arsenal possessed enough concentrated kinetic energy to vaporize major cities. And yet, the deployment of this apocalyptic energy was entirely dependent on the biological reaction time of a single, fallible human mind. The survival of the entire human species was held in check by a 120 meter per second nerve impulse traveling through the synapses of a man running on a gut feeling. Petrov chose to ignore the computer. He gambled the fate of the planet on the assumption that it was a software glitch. He was right, but the universe does not care about our luck. Humanity's continued existence is exactly like balancing a 15-pound bowling ball on the tip of a sewing needle in the center of a Category 5 hurricane. We are one misread data point, one microscopic software error, away from total self-annihilation. When that day comes, the universe will swallow our final screams into a deafening silence. The paradox of helplessness. For decades, we have pointed our most advanced radio telescopes into the abyssal dark, listening for a whisper. We call it the Fermi paradox. To explain this sterile void, astrophysicists propose the Great Filter. It is a theoretical, insurmountable barrier that prevents any primitive civilization from becoming interstellar. We desperately want to believe the Great Filter is an external threat. If the threat is external, we can fight it, but we cannot build a radar to detect the lethal flaws hardwired into our own biological glitch. The uncomfortable paradox is that the Great Filter is internal. It is encoded in our very DNA. For an organism to rise from the dirt and become a dominant species, it must be inherently ruthless. A perfectly peaceful species will simply be devoured by predators long before it learns to split the atom. The advanced intelligence required to build a technological civilization is inextricably tied to the primitive aggression required to destroy it. The exact same biological traits that allowed us to engineer nuclear warheads guarantee that we will weaponize them against our own kind. We are trapped inside a meat suit that is too intelligent to succumb to natural selection, yet far too primitive to survive its own creations. Our tools of annihilation operate at the speed of light, while our capacity for restraint relies on the sluggish 13-millisecond lag of a prehistoric neural pathway. You cannot engineer your way out of the human condition. When we look out at the dead, silent galaxies, we wonder what terrifying cosmic force killed them. They simply reached the exact same technological threshold we are approaching right now. And their biological algorithms executed the final command. Number 1, the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. We view our existence as a grand, sprawling epic, but apply the cold mathematics of time compression. If the entire 13.8 billion year history of the cosmos were compressed into a single 24-hour day, all of human history would occupy less than the last 2 seconds before midnight. We are not the main characters of reality. We are a momentary biological glitch, a microscopic spark in an abyssal dark room that has already been forgotten. Physics dictates that the cosmos is marching relentlessly toward entropy and heat death. In 100 trillion years, the last star will flicker out, and eventually, the final black holes will evaporate. But humanity will not be here to see the stars go dark. We are a metastable dust mote trapped in a cage of our own evolutionary design. We scour the cosmos looking for the Great Filter, terrified of an invisible hand that might wipe us out. But the gun is already in our hands. The trigger was pulled the moment our ancestors stood upright, and the bullet is just taking its time. Thank you for watching and sticking till the end. We've got plenty more videos coming in the future.